Hi, everyone, and welcome to Over the Rainbow Show with your host, Bob Brown, on Wednesday, the 12th of July at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 o'clock Pacific Time, and 8 p.m. in the UK. Well, my special guest today is Tom Dongo. Tom is widely recognized as one of the Americans' leading experts on the paranormal, UFO, and extraterrestrials. He's an author of 8 books that focus on the paranormal, including his bestseller, The Revised Edition of Merging Dimensions, which described the incredible strange paranormal happenings which took place on the Bradshaw Ranch in Sedona, Arizona. Can we please welcome Tom to the show? Hello there.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's a great honor to be on your show again.
Thank you. You know, when you talk about Bradshaw Ranch, now, how did it start for you then, Tom?
Well, when I moved to Sedona in 1988, and I wasn't really into paranormal stuff then. I was curious about it, but I really wasn't into it. But I heard about strange things going on the Bradshaw Ranch, so I did not know the Bradshaws, but I really wanted to go out there. So I got a letter from Linda Bradshaw. She enclosed some photographs, and she said, "Would you come out to the ranch?" And I thought, yes, oh, absolutely, I'll be there. So I called her and I said, I'll be there tomorrow. And so I ended up spending 4.5 years with the Bradshaws on the Bradshaw Ranch, and it was a endless wonder. I've been on, I was just saying a little while ago, I've been on worldwide radio 85 times now with this show, and I've talked about the Bradshaw Ranch a lot, and it was featured on the History Channel a few weeks ago, and it's really been a big hit. The interview that I was on has had 118,000 views so far. So Bradshaw Ranch Bradshaw Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch are very big news here.
What's the difference between Skinwalker Ranch and Bradshaw Ranch?
Well, I'm very familiar. I know the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, Brandon Fugel, and some of the guys that work there. But the big difference is the stuff that goes on the Skinwalker Ranch is very malevolent. It's bad, and the difference is the Bradshaw Ranch, same sort of things happen, but it was never a bad experience. It was always good experiences. But Skinwalker has been very. I say it's a dangerous place. I think there's some kind of an entity that lives on there that doesn't want people on that land. It just doesn't, and it can get real nasty. It can be really. Well, for example, they were out there at 2:00 in the afternoon one day on the ranch, and there was a calf and a mother cow there, and they walked about 10 minutes past the cows, and when they came back, the calf had been mutilated, torn to pieces, and the mother cow, her leg was hurt badly, and they never heard a single thing. So it's that sort of thing. And then the one that I really, they were by the cattle pen, the original owners of the Skinwalker Ranch, and a wolf came out of the woods, and it was enormous. It was oh, there's an ancient wolf that was extinct now, but they were very big, almost like a pony. And so
Oh yeah.
yeah, and this one, it came over to them, and it was really friendly. It was an odd behavior for a wolf, and then it went over to the corral that was right there, and it grabbed a calf by the nose, and it was trying to pull it through the fence, and it wouldn't stop. They beat it with whatever they could find, and it wouldn't stop. It kept trying to pull the calf through the fence. So he went and got his 45 pistol and shot it a few times, and it didn't affect the wolf at all. So then he went and got a 30-06 rifle, which you can drop an elephant with one of those.
Hmm.
And he shot it 2 or 3 times. It actually blew a huge chunk of flesh off the wolf. And so then the wolf gave up, and it trotted back into the woods. But they picked up the flesh, and it was putrid. It was rotten. But
Oh my God.
yeah, so it's that sort of stuff that happens on the Skinwalker, has happened on the Skinwalker Ranch, but it never happened to that degree on the Bradshaw Ranch. It was never that bad. It was always good stuff.
Right. Yeah. So you were there with Linda for quite a while then,
Hmm.
with Linda Bradshaw.
Well,
What did you find out about the Bradshaw Ranch then?
well, we had camera crews every week. We had another camera crew from BBC, Universal Studios every week out there, and it's amazing stuff. I mean, strange creatures, UFOs. We were near a portal. There was a portal that was near the ranch, and we could feel things coming through that portal. It was about 30 feet off the ground and about 20 feet wide, and we could feel things coming through that portal, and we could actually smell them. And we thought that they could see us, but we couldn't see them. And they actually, some of them smelled very nice, like roses, whatnot. And some of the smells were like burning sulfur and tar, and so it was. So it's quite an experience. And Bob Bradshaw, her husband, came out one night and saw a UFO land in the apple orchard with about 100 white spheres around it. And that was enough for Bob. He went in and watched television. He never came out again. Linda would
Never.
go, yeah, Linda would go in there and say, Bob, you've got to come out and see this. This is incredible. He wouldn't do it. He'd stay in there and watch TV. He would not come out. So me and Linda kind of ran the whole show for 4.5 years. And then they decided to sell the ranch. Well, Bob died, and so anyway, yeah, it's quite experience, and I've been on television countless times. But the thing we always asked the crews, the camera crews, we needed equipment. We knew that it was going to end at the Bradshaw Ranch. All the activity was going to end. So we would ask all the crews, and they would see it. And we told them, we will give you rights, all rights to whatever you film. And if you give us any kind of scientific equipment, and they would go back to their supervisor, and I'd say, go back to your supervisors and tell them, what you saw, and we need equipment, which would have been nothing to them. $1 million would have been nothing to them. But they got shot down every single time, and we spent the whole 4.5 years with just 35 millimeter point and shoot cameras, a few portable spotlights that were battery powered, rechargeable, and then finally towards the end, digital cameras came out, and camcorders that would film at night. I have 2 Sony cameras now that are 0 lux cameras. And they can, at night they can film anything the eye can see. The cameras will film it. We got all that stuff too late. So everything we did, which is now world famous, we got with just 35 millimeter film cameras.
Amazing in them days when things were happening. Because I've noticed, well, if you see anything, even now, you're amazed by it. By the time you go get your camera, it disappears.
Well, I talked about this the other day I was on Coast to Coast for 3 hours with Connie Willis. It was quite a show.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that I made it that long, but I did for a guy my age. But I made it through the 3 hours very smoothly. So, but we talked a lot about the Bradshaw Ranch and the activity there, and it was a phenomenon that I really feel that there are only a handful of people on this planet that have ever seen the things that me and Linda Bradshaw saw and experienced. And a lot of times, I've actually had this happen when we did have cameras, and not only at the Bradshaw Ranch, but I saw something so stunning in front of me. I had a video camera right in my hand, and by the time the thing was gone, I looked down. I realized all I had to do was lift the camera and film it. But I was so stunned by what I was looking at. And I've talked to a bunch of other people that had the same experience. They just forget everything, and that their mind almost can't deal with what they're seeing. So they forgot they had a video camera in the hand.
So have you seen aliens then on Bradshaw Ranch?
No, strange creatures, but not aliens. This is the most unusual thing that happened on the Bradshaw Ranch, and there's been a couple of reenactments of it. Linda and I were out one night, and the Bradshaws had 7 dogs on the ranch. If a dog wandered onto the ranch, they would keep it. So they had 7 dogs, and they were outside dogs. They would, and the ocean has come and gone here 7 times. So it was all beach sand, like all around the ranch, genuine beach sand.
Yeah.
So the dogs would in the summer, they dig into it to be cool, and in the winter they bury themselves in the sand to be warm. So Linda and I were just standing there doing our usual stuff, and we heard these noises in coming towards us, and they were grunting noises. And I said to Linda, I said, "What do you think, Linda? Does that sound like a mountain lion, a javelina, a bear?" And she said, "No, they're just different. It's not the same." So, and then finally, that whatever it was following a dry creek. There was no water in it. It went around the ranch, and it got about halfway down that dry creek, which is only about 100 yards from us, and it roared like an African lion. And it was pretty scary thing. And all the dogs jumped up simultaneously, just like they were triggered, and ran towards the sound. And we thought we were going to hear dogs torn to pieces, and we didn't. Not a sound. They all came trotting back. So they knew the creature. They were familiar with it. So they all came trotting back about 15 minutes later, dug themselves back into the sand, and so then the creature kept going. And they had a corral. The Bradshaws had a corral at the south end of the ranch, and at the north end, there are 4 or 5 horses each corral. And the horses were screaming like a woman being murdered. That's what it sounded like to us. And so it walked right by, and the horses were trying to kick their way out of the corrals. And so they were 2 by 10-inch boards. They were just the board about 8. It was too high for the horses to jump over, so they were trying to kick their way out. And the creature walked right by the south corral. The next day, Linda and I went out there, and it had a stride 67 inches long. I'm 6'2", and my stride is 27 inches, but this thing was 72 inches, so it was.
Good God.
It left clear tracks in the sand, it was a little bit wet, so it really sunk in, and it weighed at least 1,000 pounds. And we didn't know it, but we thought we shined our spotlights into the trees, and we thought it was in the trees to the south of us, but it wasn't. It was up on the ridge looking down at us, and its head probably just stuck up enough to see us, but we didn't. Well, actually, it's a good thing we didn't see it. But it was probably between 10 and 15 feet tall.
So you saw the footprints. Did you see the footprints then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were very deep. Something, it was very heavy. And the odd thing is, they were more round than anything else. They were roundish. They weren't like a
like
human.
toes or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, they were kind of the odd thing is you could see the skin creases in the veins in a couple of the tracks. So it was they were more round than they were like our feet. So very, very strange, but that's the sort of thing that happened on the Bradshaw Ranch constantly.
So you reckon portals open up quite regular then?
Yeah. I was Bill Hamilton. This is about in the 80s. He was the world's top UFO researcher at the time, and I just recently told this story on a couple of shows, and because I'd really forgotten about it. But Bill and I were just standing there in front of the ranch house, and a sphere about 50 feet across rose up right in front of us. And it went up about 300 feet in the air and turned into a single engine plane. With all the flashing lights, the engine noise, everything. And I pretty much peed myself. It was so incredible. And I turned to Bill and I said, Bill, yeah, I thought he was shocked, but he said, oh, I saw something like that once on the Tehachapi Pass in California. He was totally nonchalant about it. I said,
It looked as though it was nothing it's seen before, but it was just one of those things.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of typical. Linda and I, we would do was we walked around and just took flash pictures with our cameras in any direction, and up, down, sideways, and then the next day we'd look at the negatives and see if it was anything on them, and then we developed those prints. It was way too expensive just to develop all the prints all the time, very expensive. So that's how we got our best stuff. It's world famous. It's been shown all around the world in different stations, whatnot. I gave them away. I've never charged anybody unless they gave me money. But they're world famous photographs, and they're my book, Merging Dimensions, has all those photographs in the book, and it's a bestseller. Merging Dimensions. It's all about the Bradshaw Ranch, and it's a bona fide bestseller now. So it's my bread and butter. So
do you think, Tom? Do you think still things are happening at Bradshaw Ranch now?
Yeah, there is. I have friends that go out there a lot. It's now in ruins. It's the windows are all smashed out, and the grass is hip high and that sort of thing. But it's still going on. And a friend of mine who goes out there all the time found on a hill near the Bradshaw Ranch U.S. government equipment. One camera was faced straight up, and the other one was faced down to the ranch. And he talked to somebody that was in the military, and they said, yeah, that's all very expensive U.S. military stuff. So the government still has an acute interest in the Bradshaw Ranch. But why? So one of the things that happened is fairly recently. I'm not out in the field anymore because I'm just too old. I used to hunt them on their turf, and I would. That's why I was never an armchair researcher. I was always out there after them when I was younger.
Yeah.
So these three guys went out there, and I interviewed them. I actually, most of the time I would have to go to the second or third person. Rarely I could find the original person, the first person. So I would have to go with the second or third person that counts. So anyway, these guys were. I spent 2 hours interviewing them, and they were very experienced researchers. They had the best equipment. You name it, they had it. Very expensive stuff. So they spread out around the Bradshaw Ranch. There's nobody on the Bradshaw Ranch now. It's owned by the U.S. government. It's been leased to the University of Northern Arizona. And the University of Northern Arizona was going to bulldoze the ranch and build dormitories there. So for
Right.
6 years now, they've done nothing. I think they read my books and it scared them so bad they decided not to, because they have dormitories there. It's going to happen to the, whoever those kids are there in those dormitories. They're going to experience this stuff. So anyway, these guys were they spread out around the ranch above a little bit. One guy was by the windmill. One guy was halfway. And the interesting thing is they never took any photographs, didn't use their equipment at all. They were so probably mind controlled at any rate. So they were looking up the hill and headlights came up on the hill. It's called Bradshaw Hill now. The road coming down from that hill zigzags down. And so they were looking at these headlights and a lot of times tourists will, go up there. But but they'll turn around and go back to Sedona or whatever. So anyway, these lights didn't come down the road. They came down through the trees, which is even impossible, even for a Jeep or something, or a tank even. Impossible place. So they watched the lights coming down, and then the University of Northern Arizona put a chain link fence around 2 or 3 acres of cultivated ground. They were going to, the university was going to use it for a research on Native American plants, trees, whatnot. So the car went right through the chain link fence, went across the cultivated field, and like it was driving on a nice smooth road, and it came around. And just before that, the guy on the hill to the last guy on the right saw somebody in white pants came out from nowhere, walked out to the back of the ranch, and then left. So the car comes around and hit it. I've seen UFOs can mimic cars perfectly. I've seen it so many times, and they can mimic planes too. Even big planes, 4-engine planes, they can do that. So anyway, the car stopped. It hit tail lights, headlights, and the door opened, and the interior lights came on, and a girl, all dressed in white, ran around the back of the car, and went to the back of the ranch house where the guy in the white pants had been.
Oh.
So the first thing I asked was, did she have time to take a pee? And they said, no, she didn't. So what she must have, the guy in the white pants must have left something for her, and she picked it up. So she went back to the car, and it went back through the chain link fence, across the cultivated field, like it was on smooth ground, through the chain link fence again, and back up the hill. Well, the odd thing is something happened to all 3 of those guys, which is very common in one of these instances. And I found it kind of comical because we finally, whoever they are in quotes, picked on experienced researchers that knew everything. And the guy that was up by they didn't take any pictures. They didn't their recording equipment. They didn't, they didn't use any of their equipment. Yeah. So the guy by the windmill got lost. He turned around. The ranch house was right in front of him, just down a ways. He turned around and got lost. So disoriented that when they finally found him, he was so confused. He didn't even know where he was. So something was done to him. So anyway, that's pretty typical of stuff that went on the Bradshaw Ranch. It's way more different than the Skinwalker. I know everything that's happened on Skinwalker. And Bradshaw, we have proof. I mean, we have photographs and we have, proof, tangible proof. But they have very little on the Skinwalker Ranch, but millions and millions of dollars have been invested in the Skinwalker Ranch, but not in the Bradshaw Ranch.
Yeah, I know you're remote view as well. What could you see at Bradshaw Ranch then?
Well, I've been called one of the world's best remote viewers. I was born with the ability, and me and Maureen St. Germain, who's real famous. She's a one of the world's best-selling book authors. We taught remote viewing for a while, and she taught the military version with coordinates, and I taught what she called the Tom Dongo method. Mine was completely different because I know some of the best remote viewers in the world. I'll tell you a real interesting story once. I never get tired of telling this story I'm going to tell you in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't really I wasn't into remote viewing at the time of the Bradshaw Ranch, but it's a fascinating thing. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody to play with around here. There's no good remote viewers in this area, but I sure miss it.
Right. Yeah, because it's fascinating
Yeah.
about remote viewing and what you could see and what you can pick up.
Well, it's a different vision. You're seeing with different eyes. And I've told people, and I've tried to give it away. I've been on shows. Sometimes they had 1 million listeners, and I tried to give it away. And I really tried because I want people to see what I see. And I've even because most Maureen and I didn't charge all that much money. We had but most remote viewers charged anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, and we didn't want to charge people that much because we wanted to train as many as we could. And we had a pretty good success. We had about a 25% success rate, and we taught some brilliant remote viewers. It's amazed us that how some of them develop, but I was born with the ability. I was probably a seer in a Tibetan village in a past life. I think that's how it must have come about. So the Tibetans had seers. They go around Tibet and the other villages and then come back and report to their village what they saw. So that's probably my ability is different. And I know I've studied Ingo Swann, Russell Targ, the best of the best, and I've worked with U.S. government remote viewers. Some of them were my students. I taught them my technique. And one of them trained his son, his 10-year-old son, my technique. He was an ex-U.S. government remote viewer. And he said, he taught him my technique. And he said his son has 100% hit rate on anything he does. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, mind control. It's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
tell us a little bit about mind control.
Well, we actually, I was talking to Connie Willis last night for about 2 hours from coast to coast. She's gotten to be a very good friend of mine. She's fantastic, and she's very, very knowledgeable. Extreme for a woman, 56 years old. She's extremely knowledgeable. I love people like that. I can't get enough of them. But we were talking about remote. I was on a show one time talking about remote viewing, and somebody called in and asked, "What do you know about remote influencing?" So Connie and I spent quite a bit of time talking about that, whether it's it's legal or illegal, in a spiritual terms, and so I've never, in the very beginning when the Americans and the Russians were learning remote viewing, and it wasn't all that long ago. The Russians were dying of heart attacks, and the Americans were dying of brain tumors. So if you use it intentionally for a bad reason, it comes back on you. Evidently, I've never have I planted thoughts in people's minds. Yes, I have, and sometimes it's phenomenal how it works, and sometimes it doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Have you been on Skinwalker Ranch then, Tom?
No, you can't. Nobody can get on it because of insurance. The insurance companies won't let visitors go there. But I've scanned it. I was trained at the Berkeley Psychic Institute how to do things like that. I can scan things from a distance very accurately. And I scanned the Skinwalker Ranch, and I'm glad they didn't. There was a time I was in Vernal, Utah I was a speaker at the Phenomicon, And I was hoping they wouldn't invite me to go on the Skinwalker Ranch because I probably would have. This is only a year ago, and because it's a scary place. It really is. There's things on the Skinwalker Ranch that these guys shouldn't be messing with. It's dangerous. For example, they had a. I haven't watched television in 12 years, so I don't own a television set. So a lot of stuff I don't watch.
Right.
But they had a $50,000 drone that they just sent up in the air, and something smacked it, like this, just swatted it, and it flew through the air and crashed. A $50,000 drone. So that's the sort of thing that's going on there now. So it's
I
interesting
know you,
combination. Yeah,
I know you said you scanned the area of Skinwalker.
yeah.
What could you see then?
Well, I used to. I was ridiculed and attacked verbally so many times years ago. I quit doing this 3 times because I would. It turns out I was right every single time about something I talked about, but the debunkers and the naysayers and the skeptics really gave me a hard time. So I said to heck with it, I'm just not going to do it anymore. So I quit 3 times. But so some of the things I talk about just are unbelievable. And so for instance, Joe McMoneagle, who is one of the top, he was the U.S. government's top remote viewer, Joe McMoneagle, and I was standing right beside him at a conference, a UFO conference, about 20 years ago, and I don't do it anymore because it's boring for me now. But I used to go out into space and visit alien spacecraft. There's thousands of them in orbit around the Earth. Some of them are million, long ways out, but they're in orbit. So I would go out and visit them. And so I thought I had to be crazy for sure. I got to be nuts. I mean, this, So anyway, Joe McMoneagle, who he was talking about, he was doing that, and the U.S. remote viewers were doing the same thing. And I'm thinking, well, damn, I'm not crazy after all, and it's happened with me many, many times. So anyway, Joe, if you remote view up to an alien spacecraft and it feels like you get a threatening feeling from a very negative feeling, and then you stay away because they can really do some damage if they want to. So I would leave, and if I'd find one that felt friendly, and you go closer and closer and closer, and it still feels friendly. So that means that they don't mind you being there. So I would go float right through the wall of the craft, and they would look up and they'd say, "Oh, another damn human." You could see that's what they were thinking of. So I would go around, float around through the alien spacecraft and look at things. It was always a little opaque. It was never crystal clear, and sometimes very opaque. But I did that. It got boring after a while. And then one night, I talked about this last night with Connie. I was some of these. I studied human extraterrestrials for 40 years, and there are about 17 races of human extraterrestrials here, and about 130 humanoids. Anyway, I was on one of the craft in a humanoid. They're the same like us. They had 2 arms, 2 legs. And anyway, I said, can I scan you? I was very good at that, scanning people's minds, but I was in a bad car accident about 25 years ago, and I lost a lot of my major abilities. And so he said, yeah, basically the alien said, sure, have at it, So I could only penetrate the aliens. Penetrating somebody's mind is like penetrating an onion, layer after layer after layer. And then you get in the middle and you can read their whole life. And I used to do that. I can do it a little bit now, but not like I used to. So at any rate, the alien stood there while I scanned him. So, and it was probably millions of years in advance of us. And, most of these, we're cucumbers compared to most of these really advanced humanoid aliens. And so I was able to download what the alien, they do everything with their minds. They don't do anything with their hands. They do it with their minds. and they can completely control us. Completely, it's very easy for them to do it. That's what they did to those three guys on the Bradshaw Ranch. One of them, an alien, was controlling those three guys. So anyway, I got enough. I can only penetrate the alien's brain about a third of the way, but I learned stuff. My brain absorbed it, and their intelligence is incomprehensible to us. We don't have the equipment, the mental equipment, to understand these humanoid extraterrestrials that are 2 or 3 million years ahead of us, and a lot of them are, and a lot of them are here right now. They're after the U.S. government has now admitted that UFOs and aliens or extraterrestrials are real officially. I'm sure you guys know that. So that's opened a real can of all kinds of stuff, and the activity lately has been phenomenal around the world about UFOs. So anyway, that was my experience with Joe McMoneagle.
Yeah. I know briefly we talked about dogmen, werewolves.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on werewolves or dogmen then? Are they real?
Oh, they absolutely. I was talking to Connie Willis last night. She's a host on Coast to Coast, and she gets some really crazy stuff, some really whacked out people, and some of them have said that dogmen they're spiritual people, very very advanced spiritual people. They're real sacred or whatever, and they're not. They're very evil. They're werewolves, basically. And there's plenty of them in England, in the UK, and but dogmen. I spent a year researching dogmen, and they're here now. There's been 2 sightings here. I interviewed both of those people, 2 women. They were one dogman was looking in the windows, and their eyes. The big difference between Bigfoot and dogman is dogman's eyes will glow either orange or red. If you see a creature at night, and their eyes are glowing, it's a dogman. Bigfoot's eyes don't glow. So anyway, they're concentrated in the United States around the Mississippi River, and the worst ones of them, and they are really bad, are in Central Texas. I've told people if I had a ranch in Central Texas, I wouldn't go out at night with at least a 45 pistol or a 12 gauge shotgun, because they can. Big dogmen do kill people. They found a whole family hanging in the trees in Arkansas, I think, torn to pieces. Yeah, and when dogmen kill a human, the U.S. government shows up with all kinds of machine guns and technological instruments and run off into the woods. Why? What do they know about dogmen that we don't? And I've had, my best friend in the world was Clifford Mahooty. He was a Zuni elder, and he was in tribe of 261 tribes in the U.S. He worked for the government, so he knew a lot, and he was my very best friend. And I asked him one day, I said, Cliff, what do you know? What do you Indians know about dogmen? And he said, we don't know. It's something paranormal. That's all we know. But like skinwalkers are fairly common, and they're just as weird. But skinwalkers don't. I'll tell you a story that a woman emailed me one time, and she said she was in near the Skinwalker Ranch, and they were going about 70 miles an hour on the highway, and they looked out, and there was a skinwalker running right beside the car, and she said it looked like a mangled deer, and they're really mean looking things, and so I hope I never run into a skinwalker either, but dogmen there's nothing spiritual about dogmen. They're werewolves, and they're very very dangerous. They can be.
There's Alex in the chat room says, question for Tom. Are these dogmen purely flesh and blood?
Well, that's a very good question. Like Bigfoot, my opinion, I've been on some big Bigfoot documentaries, and I say they're aliens. because a lot of times Bigfoot has been seen with around uh, UFOs, flying saucers, especially in Pennsylvania. There's a big flap with I forgot his name now, but even the Pennsylvania State Police got involved in it. So I think Bigfoot is an alien creature, and dogmen. There's something mysterious about dogmen. They're clever. They're evil. They love to scare humans. They love to scare the hell out of humans. Uh, so it's kind of play for them, but they're dogmen are, I've camped all over North America, all over the U.S., all over Canada, the Yukon, and Alaska. And if I'd have known about Bigfoot 50 or 60 years ago, I don't know if I would have done any of that, knowing how bad dogmen can be.
Have you ever seen a Bigfoot then, Tom?
No, but I was talking with Connie Willis a lot about that because she's as knowledgeable. I've been studying Bigfoot since I was 16, and they're very I forgot his name now. He's the probably the world's Bigfoot expert, and I said, I have seen personally tracks materialize, go 100 yards or so, and then disappear. So that means they can materialize and dematerialize. And boy, this guy just really went flew off the handle, and accused me of being a nut job and real crazy. And he's but they do. I mean, I've talked to researchers that are so that means Bigfoot can materialize and dematerialize. So they're and I talked to a woman. She owned a ranch in Oklahoma. She and her husband, and she was a perfectly normal person. 3 kids, and they had a Bigfoot family on the ranch, and they got to be good friends. And they would the big feet would visit with them, just like neighbors, And she said that they could speak English. That's not uncommon. I think there are different grades of Bigfoot. There's some that are just animals, and some of them are very, very, intelligent. How and why, I have no idea. But she would actually said, and this woman wasn't nuts. She wasn't crazy. She was just an average, everyday housewife.
Right.
She said that she would give them books, and the Bigfoot would read the books, then critique them. So, and then I have another friend in the Midwest. He bought a huge tract of land because there's a Bigfoot family living on it, and he wanted to protect them.
So do you think they're interdimensional then?
Yeah, they're and I've tried to remote view some of these things, and some things you can't. I can't remote view them. I just get nowhere. But some things I can really get into deeply, but not. There are times I get nowhere. So Bigfoot's a strange creature, but they're real. I mean, I've interviewed many people that have been face to face with Bigfoot, and same with human extraterrestrials. That was my expertise for a while, was human extraterrestrials. And the one word that and they don't always look like us. Most of them are oriental looking. The human extraterrestrials, and most of them have kind of a pointed chin and different ears and that sort of thing. But they're usually physically perfect. That you never see an overweight extraterrestrial, a human extraterrestrial. And so they.
Do they walk amongst us then now?
Yes, hundreds of thousands. The guy that delivered your mail might be an extraterrestrial, and he knows he's an extraterrestrial. He knows he's from another planet. People would say, "Oh, he must be a walk-in," And I said, "No, they're not. They know they're not a walk-in. They didn't walk into your body. They're from another planet, and they know it." So so they the one word that people used was wonderful. I said, "Well, how was it?" I've interviewed, I think, 12 people, had face-to-face human extraterrestrial contact. Oh yeah, and they're here. There's hundreds of thousands of them here, and they would always show something that proved they weren't from the Earth, something that couldn't possibly be from the earth, and then they all every one of us said the experience was wonderful. They're our brothers and sisters from the stars, and they're real. I've been face to face with a female human extraterrestrials, and I've seen uh, uh, in a supermarket of all places a female tall white, and the tall whites don't like us at all. And the other guy was a Nordic. He was you would call a Nordic. He was about 6'5",
Right.
and she I well, it's an interesting story. I was at the supermarket, and I saw the girl, and she's my height. I'm 6'2", and she was wearing all black, and she was wearing wraparound sunglasses so you couldn't see her eyes. And people were walking all around them like they couldn't see them. So one of the talk show hosts I was a show I was on said, well, somebody was invisible, either you or them or something, because they couldn't see you. So anyway, I was 5 feet from that tall white woman, and she had skin as white as snow, and she was terrified. She was just kind of holding herself, terrified of being around humans. That so people, and then so the guy comes out, and he takes her body. He had kind of a amused look on his face, and neither one of them looked at me at all. And I studied the girl and they didn't look at me at all. So, and people had asked me, well, what did they buy? And I said, well, they didn't buy anything. They just walked around, and he would pick something up off the shelf. And I could tell what they were saying. They were saying humans actually eat this, some of this, because we eat a lot of junk. Most of food, especially Americans, eat is poison with all the chemicals that's in it. So they would look at it, examine it, and put it back on the shelf, and go down a little further and take out something else. They go, look at this. Humans eat this stuff. So
Yeah. Tom's asking another question here. Do you think there are people on Earth who have visited the planetary home of these humanoid aliens?
uh, not so much the humanoids, but human extraterrestrial. Yes, in fact, I know some people that, and they're not making it up. I have one friend. Is we call him Z, and he has constant contact with what they call Pleiarans. They say they're from 73 light years from here, and they go through the Pleiades when they come here. So he's written 5 books about it, the Pleiarans, and and I told him, I wanted to make sure before, as I validated him. It's on the back of his books that I remote viewed him, and I validate his experiences. So I said, I wanted to make sure you weren't a liar or a faker or a fraud. And he wasn't offended. I said, so I remote viewed the stuff. And so I asked him a few questions, and she said, you got it. That's exactly what it is. So I said, okay, then he's telling the truth. So, there's a lot of fakers. There's a lot of charlatans.
I was going to say that because, there'll be people saying, not especially about you, but other people saying, oh, they're liars. It's fake news they're talking about.
But unfortunately, a lot of it is fake. I've been hoaxed so many times. Now I assume something is a hoax before I can prove it. I have to prove it to myself that it's real. Otherwise, because I've been suckered into so many things that I thought they were telling the truth, and they weren't. Even as honest as they seemed, they were lying the whole time. So now I don't, until I can prove it to myself, I don't believe anything anybody tells me. I really don't. I don't.
You try and scan them if they're telling you a story.
Well, I used to be able to do that, but I was in that bad car accident. When all my red flags would go up, and so I don't. I really can't do that anymore. I get a feeling that they're lying, and usually are, but sometimes they're not. So but unfortunately, there are some of these people that are making a lot of money and I could name some, but I won't. And
Yeah.
they're lying, and they're charging people a lot of money to believe this hoax. This they've invented the whole thing, and they after a while they begin to believe it. Begin to believe it themselves, and then they start selling tickets for $500 a piece to teach people this stuff. That's not and I really have a hard time with that because it's leading people down we're in a critical time in history right now, and it's just leading people down the wrong road. We don't have time for that anymore because we're at a critical period right now in human
We
history.
are.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
We're nearly coming to the end of the show. Fortunately, it
Yeah.
goes ever so quickly.
Yeah.
What you got planned for the future for yourself? Then, are you going to write another book?
No, I get asked that all the time. I'm just going to push the ones I've got. I have 8, and 4 of them have gone out of print, but Merging Dimensions is doing so well that I'm focusing on that. It's so that's but I have no plan. I have no plans to do anything else.
Where can people find your books?
Well, either Amazon in the U.S. I think you have the Amazon too in the U.K., right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Amazon. We ship them a lot of books, so Amazon has lots of books. So that Amazon.
If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Well,
Facebook?
no, well, yeah, I guess so. I sometimes get 50 emails a day, so I'm just if I had 2 helpers, we'd be swamped all the time. So I really, unless it's something awfully important, I'd rather not hear it. I don't have the time. But yeah, they can go on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and I have a website, but the website's way out of date, so it's not much good. But if they want Merging Dimensions, it's on Amazon. I know the shipping to UK is pretty expensive, but I think they have an outlet in the UK now, so you don't have to pay, a ton of money
Taxes,
for shipping.
whatever it is. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
That. Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting about Bradshaw Ranch.
Yeah.
And it's still got, well, like you say, they're on about knocking it down, and then the government have got involved now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they've always been. The U.S. government is involved in all this stuff. Incidentally, I'll just say this real quick. Back about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I was when it was the Soviet Union, I was heavily involved with the Soviet Union, and they never lied. They never kept any secrets about UFOs and aliens, because I knew everything that the Soviets knew, and the Americans government kept. They don't tell us anything, but they do now, because there's so many remote viewers and whatnot that have exposed them. And there's some really good researchers now that expose what the U.S. government is doing, and they have to admit it. They're in a position where they have to admit it, that they've known all along about UFOs and extraterrestrials. And we have our own UFOs, and some of the things we see are ours. U.S. or I think the Russians have them, and I think the British have them.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm sure some of the stuff you see out there now could be ours.
Yeah, very easily. There's probably a good percentage of the U.S. UFO sightings are ours. They're U.S. craft, and they're pretty. And a lot of them are copied crashed UFOs. Roswell I've heard from Connie Willis that they have about 7. They can shoot UFOs down now. The U.S. government can shoot them. They have a beam weapon that can shoot down any alien craft, and they've been doing it. My question is, why haven't the aliens retaliated and shot back? Well, probably pretty soon that they will, because the Soviets had 33 MiG fighters shot down by UFOs, because the Russians were trying to shoot down a UFO to catch up with Roswell, the stuff that U.S. got from Roswell.
Right. That's very strange, that is. Yeah, but thank you so much, Tom, for coming on the show.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
been very interesting.
that hour show went by fast, didn't it? I'm looking at the timer right now.
Yes, it's coming up now
Yeah.
to the hour mark.
Yeah.
It does go very quick.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Well,
Bob. It's been a pleasure to be on your show again. I really enjoyed it.
yes. Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to Susan being the producer of the show. My guest on Friday should have been, just try to think of her name again. I'll find it in a minute. June Lugren. But I don't know if she's still coming on. I think she said she can't do it now. But anyway, I'll sort something out for Friday. Good night and God bless. You take care, Tom. Look after yourself. And I'll catch up with you another time. Thank you.
A pleasure, Bob.
And everybody in the chat room as well. Thank you again for coming in the chat room with the questions for Tom. Bye for now.